Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Talent Bytes with me, your host, Jess Morgan. And today I am joined by Edd Slaney, who is our product delivery manager at PinPoint. Now, PinPoint are our very strong strategic tech partners in the ATS space and more. And we work really, really closely with PinPoint. And Ed's here today to talk to us about some really cool automation products that they are releasing and have actually released, and to show us kind of the value that that's adding. So, Ed, I'll hand over you to introduce yourself.
Wonderful, thank you. Yes, hi, I'm Edd Slaney. I'm product delivery manager at PinPoint, and what that means is I sort of look after our roadmap, the things that go into it, and to make sure that we build the right things at the right time on budget, making sure we're doing everything right. And the system we're launching today is workflow automations, which is a new sort of layer to PinPoint, if you like, to allow you to automate many parts in almost all parts of the PinPoint platform to really help companies do recruitment their way in a very scalable, very powerful way. Lots of good automation there.
And why did you decide to focus on this as a product that you guys invested time in building out versus, I'm sure you've got like any good product team, a very, very long backlog of stuff that you could have focused on? How come you chose to prioritize workflow automation over some of the other stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably the primary reason is that we see more so than ever the recruitment teams handling more and more candidates, much bigger volume of candidates in a market where teams are being asked to do more with less. Lots of teams have had budgets cut, people have been laid off. And so there's a huge amount of candidates in market and less people to deal with them than ever. And we've always been on the side of the recruiters, the tech leaders, to make sure they can do more with less. And this system really is designed to help people do more with less. It's designed to be able to make to allow you to go faster with the same level of actual people resourcing, but not have the ATS tie people up with busy work and doing all the sort of things, the repetitive things that we know we can automate away. And so it touches every part of the PinPoint platform, and so it's designed to help you just go faster with PinPoint. More recruitment with less busy work.
Awesome. Okay, well, listen, let's not beat around the bush anymore. I'll be really keen to hop into the product and understand a bit more. So I'll hand over to you, Ed.
Okay, so PinPoint is a applicant tracking system. It's been around for a long time. We've got lots and lots of different features, and more we ask people to have PinPoint be something they can customize to the way they work, and as they do things at greater scale. And so the automation system is really designed to help that. And as with all things PinPoint, we sort of start making sure you make it as easy as possible for our technology to be accessible to people. So on the left-hand side, if I go down to the automation section, we've got an area called template library. So we have a set of built-in templates to automations to help you get some ideas, get you started, and then go off and build those workflows. And then when you're ready to do so, you can start with the templates, but you can build up to much more complex custom automations. And we'll cover some of that today. So if I choose a template library here, you can see we've got some templates listed already. And there are things, you can filter those by the metrics that you're interested in adjusting, or some categories particularly. We've got templates for a few different kinds of things. So for example, the first one here is applying tags based on application responses. So you may have candidates that come in, for example, and they answer pre-screening questions as part of the application form. And you might want to tag and do things with those candidates based on the responses they give. So for example, you may want to have a candidate that wants to needs reasonable adjustments in the recruitment process. And so you might want to tag candidates who answer a question about that in one way or the other, and have them be tagged, and say that tells the system that this is a candidate that needs handling slightly differently, and we can do things from there. On completely opposite, then one to the next to this, we have being able to email a team member if a job is still pending approval afterwards. So this one's about getting jobs launched effectively. So that's an internal automation, if you like, to help your team do things differently. So one's candidate focused, one's focused on the team, and we've got all kinds of different templates and things to help you sort of get started there. But the one we're going to focus on is this reject applications based on application responses. So again, lots of candidates coming into market, being able to handle candidates very quickly based on the answers they give in pre-screening questions, really, really important. And part of that could be rejection. And it's a good one to show off the sort of the simplicity of setting this system up, but how powerful the system can actually be once it is deployed. So if I choose to view the template here, all our systems in workflow automation have three sort of key components. So we have triggers. That's the thing that kicks off the process. So what are we actually checking and when are we checking it? Okay, so the trigger in this case is an application is created. So a new application comes in, someone applies to a job. That's going to set off this automation inflow. The next thing is a condition. So what are we actually looking for to test, to check? And in this case, we're going to look at application responses and find how they responded to a particular question. And then actions come after that. And you can have multiple actions. We've got the one listed here, but that's to reject the applications if they answer a pre-screening question a certain way. So that's the template. We're going to use this template, and because it's a template, but we need to know a few things, it's going to ask us to finish configuring the system. So at the top, our trigger is set and it's happy because we know the trigger is when an application is going to be created. Then we want to filter on that responses given. And so I need to tell the system which response we're looking for, which question we want answered and how was it answered. So I choose the finish configuring button here. Okay, so what we're actually going to look for then is an answer to a question, a pre-screening question that's part of an application form. In this case, it's going to ask me which of my system's questions I want to check. And the one I'm going to choose here is the right to live and work question. So do you have the right to live and work in the country in which the job is based? And that's a yes/no type question in the platform that we've built into this particular platform's options. So I'm going to select that question. And then I want to find all the people who said no to having the right to live and work in the territory where the job is located. So that is the question equals no. Okay, so that's set. That's all set. We're checking to find out anyone who answers no to do you have the right to live and work. Okay, so that part is finished configuring. And the last part then is what action do we want to take with those candidates? In that case, it's a rejection. And our system will move the candidates to a rejected pool, but also email the applications. And we need to say which email we want to use in that instance. So this is an early stage application. I've got a few templates in my system, but again, I have a sort of standard early rejection that doesn't offer feedback because this is super early in the process. And I can choose that template. I can view that template here. I can adjust the template wording if I want to. I can even preview the template here to see what that would actually look like in this test company's branding, for example. And then also I can adjust a few options around that. So I could say, do I want to do that in business hours? Let's say I do. And let's say, just in the Monday to Friday period only. And I can even choose a particular time zone for that if I need to. But let's say my current time zone, which is just in the UK. And I can press save. So that's all done. And that's actually ready to go. So I can press review and publish. It's just going to remind me of the last couple of details I need to be sure of, which I'm absolutely sure of, and I can press publish. And this automation is now live, it's published, and it's now operating. So super quick to deploy that. And now anytime any candidate applies to any of the positions we have open, for those positions that answer that question about right to live and work, any candidate that answers no is going to be sent into the rejected pool straight away. So really, really powerful system, really quick to set up. And that's deployed. And, in this test system, I might have 10 jobs open, but we have companies that might have 100 or maybe even thousands of jobs open. And so there's no need to go back and adjust any of the jobs. You haven't got to do this one by one or even go back and do things in bulk. This is now launched. And so it's a super powerful technology, just centralized, really, really quick and all ready to go. So yeah, really, really straightforward. That's a very simple automation. That's quite a straightforward one. A few simple steps, a few simple actions. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. And I say this system is designed so that it can talk to all parts of the PinPoint platform. And so what I'm going to do next is show off a slightly more complex automation we might set up. And this one is to do with when a role is filled, being able to reject candidates, but perhaps in different ways depending on the different stages of the process the candidates might have got to. So, for example, those candidates who have yet to be reviewed might get that similar early rejection. Candidates that have been through an interview might get a more customized email, some more details about how it's nice to meet the candidates and so on. And then for those candidates that are perhaps in like the offer stage or somewhere where we're going to get close to the finish line, it will be a task, instead of an email, it will be a task for a recruitment manager to reach out and go and speak to those people, tag the candidates perhaps with a silver medalist tag to make sure we can find them again quickly when we want to come back and hire for a similar type of role in the future, those sorts of actions. And so again, quite a lot of complexity in that, but really straightforward setup. Okay, so yeah, this time we're doing a more complex automation based on a job being filled and a headcount being full. And so we're now going to close the job and we want to do the rejections for certain candidates, but we want to do it a different way depending on the stage the candidates have reached. So those early stage candidates who had not met necessarily are going to get a very simple rejection like we saw before. But the candidates that have been through an interview stage with us, I want to do a sort of more customized rejection, talking about how it's nice to meet the candidates and those sort of things, and just offer a little bit more around that. But also then for the candidates that are in our offer stage who haven't actually made it, we're going to tag those candidates with a silver medalist tag. And perhaps we're going to set an action for a recruiter to go and reach out to them on the phone to let them know their rejection in person, because we're going to give some real actual meaningful feedback to those candidates as well. And then after that, we're going to move the candidates to the rejected pile. We might email them, we might not, but we can decide. And that sort of level of complexity is equally easy to set up in this system. So I'm going to choose the new automation button rather than use a template this time. The first thing it's going to ask me again is what triggers this workflow. And in this case, it's going to be a job being filled. So if you have a headcount setting on a job and the job reaches its headcount, that is the job filled. And so that's going to be the thing that starts this workflow. So the trigger's all set. And now rather than have the template items to finish configuring, I need to tell the system what I'd like to do next when this trigger happens. So in this case, I'm going to use something called a branching condition. So I can do one of a few different things based on a particular condition. And that in this case is going to be which stage any application is in. So I'm going to add a branching condition. I'm going to target applications. And then the answer is, I want to look at which stage the candidate is in and do something different based on a few different stages. So in this case, on the first branch here, I'm going to find all the candidates that are just in our applied stage. That's candidates we haven't met, haven't spoken to, may have reviewed, may have not, but sort of very early stages. I also want a separate branch then for candidates that have been through an interview with us and are now sitting in a review stage. So I can come in and choose our review stage here. And finally, I want to choose all the candidates that are in our offer stage who didn't actually make the cut, but we're very, very close. So we'll have a branch for offer as well. And now you can see here we've got 3 branches, and we can add more or less. We can adjust these as time goes on if we have different stages. But for now, those 3 are kind of perfect. So that's the condition and the trigger set. Now we need to define the actions. What are we actually going to do? So for any candidates that are in the applied stage, I'm going to choose to reject them, but with a very straightforward no feedback email. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to find and search for reject, and I want to reject applications. It's going to move the candidates to a rejected pile and also then send them an email telling them they have been rejected. And again, this time we'll also pick out our early feedback, early stage, no feedback rejection email. So again, that's all populated. We can set that to business hours if we'd like to, or we can even add a time delay perhaps. So for those who just applied, it might be quite soon after they've applied. You might not necessarily want to have them be rejected immediately. So we might set a delay by perhaps a set amount of time, and we might pick a number of hours or days. I won't do that in this case. I'm just going to set this as for immediately for now. But yeah, lots of options to sort of make sure this is going out at the right time of day for the right people. So I'm going to save that. So that is the first action that we'll set, and that is going to be set a straightforward rejection email for those in the applied stage. For those in the review stage, though, these are candidates we've met, so I want to do a slightly different email. So I'm going to choose to add the action again. And once again, I'm going to pick out rejections. And this time, I'm going to use a slightly different email template. So we have a post first round rejection here, which is similar, but has some more wording about it was nice to meet the candidate and the time you've taken and so on and so forth. Again, same options that are available, but that looks fine. And then finally, again, for those in our offer stage, what I actually want to do is first of all set a task for our recruiter to go who's associated to the job to reach out to those candidates on the phone and reject them as necessary. So I'm going to add an action, but this time it's going to be a task. So I can create a task for each applicant this applies to. The owner of that task is going to be the job's recruitment manager, so I can set that there. And the task title will be phone rejection, and it will be please reject. And we can use details from the process, the data we have. So for example, I'm going to use the candidate's full name and to put the title of the job in as well, so the recruiter knows exactly which job this applies to. And then we can set a due date on that to be the end of the day whenever this launches. So whatever day this is kicked off on, the task will be set for a deadline at the end of the day. So that's got all the details the recruiter will need to take part in that rejection process. And so again, we can choose to save that. So that's the action set for the task. But then also on top of that, I want to tag the candidates in that offer stage with the silver medalist tag, so that again, when we come back to hire for a similar role in the future, I can go back and look at who our silver medalists were, find them very quickly, and then perhaps reach out again and see if they're interested in the new role that's become available. So I can keep adding actions as long as I need to. There's no limit on the number of actions you can take. So I'll add another action here. In this case, I'm going to apply a tag. I can add tags to applications. And in this case, I'm going to pick one of our tags from the system, and I think I have a silver medalist tag set up. I do indeed. So I can choose silver medalist. And again, that can happen straight away. No need for delays on that. And that's all done. So I could keep adding actions all day for this. I could set another task for a recruiter to mark a task done once they have finished rejecting the candidate on the phone. And we could keep going. We could check further conditions and do more things. So the system is incredibly flexible. It's got a huge amount of power, and it can be, say, configured to the way it helps work the way you'd like to work, rather than having to have everyone in your team have to learn how the ATS works entirely and learn new processes and so on. So it also helps people sort of do the right thing in the right way without needing loads and loads of training and that sort of thing. So I'm going to give that automation a name really quickly. So this one is going to be applications after job is filled. I'll give that a save. And I can review and publish one more time. Again, it's going to tell me what it's going to do, and that's all fine. And that system is all then set. So super complex automation that's designed to hide the complexity behind our system. And now this is all happening automatically anytime a job is filled. And we can always check on things like that. So if I come back out of this for a moment, back into our manage automations dashboard here, these are some other automations I've got running in the background. And for any automation, if I want to check how an automation went or what happened, I can actually have execution history on all of these things, and these are all auditable as well. So if I could choose this other automation, which is around closing jobs after we've had a certain number of applications, this has already been executed a few times. So I can come in here, see which candidates went through this process and why. And I can even drill into those a bit further and find out why the application triggered the workflow. I can go and check what happened and how our check worked and whether the conditions were met to finish the workflow. In this case, they weren't because the condition was false. And so no action was taken after that. So I can really drill down into every single thing that happened. And that's really important for customers, particularly that are based in compliance-heavy industries. We work with lots of sort of early years education and those in the healthcare sector where everything they do must be extremely auditable. And so there's sort of no AI hidden away here. This isn't something that's not explicit. I think a lot of AI things can be quite implicit. You sort of set things and hope it'll do things a certain way. The idea of workflow automations is they're explicit. So these candidates will follow this path every single time, repeatedly, without fail. And so we're super good at this, making sure we're on the side of compliance, I think it's fair to say. So that's the sort of simple workflow we set up, and a slightly more complex one. And again, the sort of point I'd reiterate is that this can touch every part of the PinPoint platform in some way. So we look there at sort of rejecting applications, for example. We've got lots of different types of automation available. So, for example, some of the other ones I have set up here, we sort of talked about this one, we went and had a quick look at, is an automation to close jobs at a certain candidate threshold. And this actually came from a customer of ours who works in high volume recruitment. And they have an issue where after a certain number of applications have been made, they're starting to waste time on screening, on advertising, when they don't actually need to be, because they are certain within the first 500 candidates, they will find the right candidate. And so they actually don't need to take applications any further. So rather than wait over a weekend, come back on a Monday and discover they've got 2,000 applications for a job, they have a system that's set up so they can close out jobs when they reach a certain threshold. Again, super simple to set up. Every time an application is created, this workflow is triggered to check if the job has reached a certain threshold. We check if they've hit 500 candidates or not. And if we have, we then close the job associated to that count. And again, 3 steps, launched across the business, and they have hundreds of open jobs. That's super simple, and yeah, it's out there, it's working for them, and they're seeing good effects with that. So yeah, lots of different possible applications for this. We've talked about a few of them already. Obviously, lots of things around application screening, being able to automate sort of core eligibility checks, right to works, and so on, and then moving candidates into the right stage. And combined with our stage actions, you could sort of even set up interviews automatically as well. So big possibilities there. The sort of job launch tasks where it's making sure people in your team have done the right thing, notifying marketing teams that a job's about to be opened and so on, keeping recruiters on track to ensure their sort of smooth job launch process as well. We have things for talent pipeline management, so automatically engaging and nurturing candidates in certain talent pools via sort of email sequences. And then as we've talked there about like high volume recruitment, for example, so setting limits on applications, pausing roles automatically and sending sort of timely updates to candidates for those high volume companies who are trying to get to everyone very, very quickly. So yeah, lots of really useful tools to help do things at scale as fast as possible with the minimum of human intervention. It sort of allows the recruiters particularly to go out and do their best work, the bit where you want them to focus on, which is giving great candidate experience to the best candidates. Hopefully that all makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, amazing. It's gonna be quite like revolutionary, I think, for recruiters to be able to sort of build this into their process. One of the questions I had was, I saw you had like a template bank at the beginning, which presumably like the standard. This is what most people tend to look for initially. Can you share templates across your business? So I'm a recruiter, working on a number of roles, and I've built a new template that's maybe just a little bit specific to the way we do things. Can that template then be visible to other recruiters in my organization?
Sort of. So basically in this system, in the page we're looking at here, which is sort of the management of automations page, we can give any users access to this page who in your organization you need to. And so you can give a role called, I think it's automations manager. So anyone who has that role in our platform is allowed to come in and see the sort of system things I've set up for the company here. And so I could set this up and go, oh, hey, we've actually got this great one we're using in our department. This is really, really useful. You might want it for yours. And then as long as they have access and they can be given access to this page, they can come and see the sort of like company templates, if you like. But also for those we're trying to sort of collect as much feedback from people on the things they want to do with the system as possible. And as we do, the actual template library itself is something that's currently PinPoint managed. But we're going to keep adding to this. Obviously, we've just launched this. There's only a few in here right now, but we continue to innovate on this. Every time we do anything now in the product team, there's a lens through which we look through all the new features we launched and the lenses and how will this work with our automation system. So the more feedback we get, the more things we build, you're going to start to see more and more templates build up in here. So lots of ways we plan to sort of improve this in the future, more triggers, more actions, lots more checking and stuff. So yeah, it's very expandable. And we hope that, as I say, we'd like to hear what people are doing with it very actively.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Ed. I think that the value really is that it's built within the ATS. There's lots of point solutions, I guess, that do some of these bits and pieces that you could integrate or plug in. But to have it actually built within the ATS, I think is where it really adds the value as well.
Yeah, very much so. I think we've always considered that PinPoint is a great platform for those companies that do sort of very complex hiring. And that's organizations who might have, they might be recruiting in different cities across the world, but there's different compliance needs. And so you might want to ask different questions at certain points in the application based on the location of a job. We work with companies who've got a large desk-based workforce in a head office who do very traditional interviewing across a few rounds. And in the same company, they've also got 200 retail stores where the store's manager is recruiting and also doing sort of monitoring of the recruiting and all those sorts of things, and is doing group assessments where you have one interview round with lots of people. And we've always tried to be the platform that sort of helps people do multiple streams of recruitment and reduce the complexity. And so this is just another system that plays into the hands of that. It's about being able to have the right processes for the right parts of the organization in one centralized system where it can actually be centralized and monitored centrally, that sort of thing.
Awesome. Well, I know that we've started to test it out across some of our client base where we're using PinPoint, and really interesting to see the results, and we will continue to feedback. So thank you very much for sharing your time today, Ed. I guess we'll speak soon.
Wonderful. Speak to you soon. Cheers.